What's up guys, welcome to JR Strength and Fitness. In this video, we're gonna be talking about if you need to go to college, if you wanna be a trainer, if you wanna be a coach, whether that is at the collegiate level, professional level, or just independently at some sort of gym facility or on your own. Do you need to go to college? Are there pros to college, cons to college, etc.?
You can say hello, but I don't need you to like.
Alright guys, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, please like and subscribe. On this channel, we break down all things regarding personal training, whether that is general exercise science information, whether that is reaction videos of workouts, etc. Or I kind of give you the whole breakdown of exactly how the whole business of personal training is. Whether that is something you are trying to get into for yourself or something you want to expand on, or just curiosity if that's something that you just like being entertained with, because if you like entertainment, I'm your boy. So before we get any further, full disclaimer, while I'm an exercise professional, please do not do anything that I say or do just because I say it. Obviously, do your own research. Obviously, see a physician, see a fitness professional in person, etc. But today we're going to be talking about whether you go to college. So honestly, there's a lot of other stuff. I'm no financial advisor, but you could possibly pile up a lot of debt. So who am I to suggest that to you? So again, guys, please like and subscribe, let your friends know about me, and we'll get right into it. Okay, so first, right off the bat, so obviously I'm a trainer. I'm a personal trainer full time, and I myself did go to college. I went to college for 4 years, got my undergraduate, and then obviously just went into the field. Now, I'm gonna give you the pros and cons from my perspective, and also I did the research for you. So to answer the question straight up, do you need to go to college in order to be a trainer? The answer is straight up no. You don't technically need to go to college in order to be a trainer. There are actually minimum requirements to get a certification, or if a facility were to hire you, there are minimum requirements that you must meet, but they're pretty straightforward and pretty simple. For example, you need to be 18 years old, you need to have a GED or high school diploma, you need to be CPR AED certified, and that's basically it. At that point, then you can sit down for one of those tests, one of those personal training exams that right here, boom, link to the other video if you want more information on what are the top certifications, but for the most part, you can sit down for the test, get certified, and a gym might hire you at that point, or at least it's a good point to get your foot in the door. So you need to be 18, you need to be CPR AED certified, and you need to have your GED or high school diploma. That's all you need. Now, having said that, there are some pros if you do decide to go to college, and I'm going to be explaining that from my perspective, and also just objectively what are things you can possibly get out of college. Okay. Obviously, the most obvious one is that you have more credibility. You're gonna have a degree in exercise science or kinesiology or some sort of field to where you can actually show credentials that you have the minimum exercise science kind of understanding, how to implement them, etc. But granted, this is technically from a textbook, so it's a little different, but at least on paper, you can say you have a degree in exercise science, which will trump any of those personal training certifications that you can just get online. Okay, so obviously more credibility. There are also other certifications, specialty certifications, like my Certified Strength Conditioning Specialist, CSCS, which requires you to have a degree in order to take the exam. So you have to have a degree, a 4-year degree, to actually sit down to even take the exam. There are a couple of those certifications around. And also, obviously, if you want to go higher in the field, a master's, PhD, etc., then you're probably going to need a bachelor's degree in order to do that. Okay, the other pro to going to college is obviously you're going to have a huge advantage when it comes to actually the understanding the exercise science, biomechanics, human anatomy, all of the fundamental aspects of personal training and of resistance training of exercise. You're gonna have a pretty solid foundation, assuming you actually did well in school and you actually paid attention. Because obviously it goes a lot deeper. When you're training someone, it goes a lot deeper than knowing how to do an exercise. Obviously teach someone how to do it. Obviously, anyone can learn that, but why are you doing this movement? What kind of stimulus is it? What effects of the stimulus are you expecting, and how to progress that accordingly? You need to kind of know these fundamental aspects of exercise science, and obviously biomechanics is huge. So I will say in the undergrad, or at least in my undergraduate program, we spent an extensive amount of time on obviously human anatomy and physiology. That muscle originates here, it inserts here, this is the function of the muscle, etc. We're not just talking about the big muscles that everyone knows about, the pectoralis major, like duh, everyone knows that, but do they know about the pec minor? I don't know. Do they know about the psoas? I don't know. Like, obviously there are 3 heads of the tricep. Do people know where they insert or originate? Probably not. So you learn those things. You learn very fine biomechanics as far as strength curves. You talk about levers. You will learn about all of those barbell displacement of velocity, and obviously mechanically, like how certain muscles move, how certain muscles react to exercises. So for the most part, you will learn those things. Obviously, you can learn them on your own, assuming you are some autodidact, but for the most part, a lot of people aren't. And whether they're able to learn that from a textbook over just a few months of reading the textbook before taking the exam, or actually going to college, going through those courses and getting tested on them at the university level. Little different, but that's just my personal opinion. I do have that extensive knowledge because I spent those extra hours in the library studying and reading and doing all of that stuff. Okay, this is also another aspect you need to think about. So professional networking is going to be huge. So I got my job basically right out of college. It was one of the places I did my internship practicum at, and I did a pretty good job. And I kind of stuck around. The other thing is obviously professors, people, classmates that you have. Like, you'll get to know these people pretty well in your undergrad, and you might become friends with some of them. I have some trainers that I know, people in the field that I know that I went to undergrad with, and I can kind of bounce things off of them. And that's pretty freaking awesome because we're in the same field. So the professional networking is something you definitely shouldn't sleep on. Now, it's not the end all be all because you can technically do that outside, but when you're in an environment like college to where everyone's basically similar, like-minded people as far as like trying to grow, then you're probably going to find a good niche there. And the last point I'm going to make about college is that it is overall a personal development kind of journey. You are there for 4 years or however long you are, and you will grow as an individual, as a person. That doesn't mean it doesn't happen outside. It definitely happens outside of college. But for the most part, there are developmental aspects while you're in college, whether you are doing other things as part of an organization or you are working at the same time, or just school, just yourself. So honestly, that's something you can consider too, because you are not the same 18 years old as a 22-year-old when you graduate or whenever you graduate. Those are pros to going to college. There's probably a few more, but those are the main ones that you can like think about and actually focus on. Now, obviously, there are some cons to going to college if you're trying to be a personal trainer. Let's start with the obvious one. College is expensive, especially nowadays. If you're going to college and you're going to eat up a lot of debt, you need to be making a lot of money when you get out in order to be paying that off. So keeping that in mind, if you're going to swallow 100 grand, 6 figures in debt, like, how soon can you pay that off? How much money are you projected to make after you graduate? Those are kind of things you want to think about. And I can break down again in a different video as far as like what personal trainers make or what is their potential as far as income. So think about how much it costs. You're talking about housing, you're talking about tuition, you're talking about textbooks, whatever you need to do. And granted, this is probably 2-4 years, depending on you're getting an associate or a bachelor's. So it could potentially be a lot of money. Now, if you can go to college with scholarships, grants, go to community college for a couple years to kind of like keep the cost down, then obviously those are smart ways to go about it. The goal is to not leave with a lot of debt and no assurance that you're gonna make that much money in order to pay it off. So that's something to consider, but again, another video will justify exactly how much a personal trainer will make and if it will actually be worth it in the long run. In my opinion, it does matter. This is just me personally. I've been able to pay off my debt, but that's because I've done pretty well as a trainer. I know some other people that didn't do so well as a trainer because this is the United States you are going to sink or swim depending on if the market actually finds value in you. So whether that happens or not, obviously try to minimize the amount of debt you have. All right, the other con is obviously that it is potentially 4 years, like 2 to 4 years, depending if you're doing an associate or a bachelor's, and then it could be even longer than 4 years depending on how long it takes you to get your degree. So let's say you are fresh out of high school, you're 18 years old, 4 years down the road, you're 22. In that 4 years, you could have been either going to college, getting that degree, and just obviously going through the whole schooling, whether you're working at the time as just like a part-time college job, or you're actually doing stuff in the field. That's like kind of something that can occur, but is not always going to happen. Or you had those 4 years to where you possibly could have just gotten your certification and started at a gym. That is something that could happen. You can mentor under someone, you could shadow someone for a year or so, or you can just like work at a gym at the front desk or something, and just being in that environment, and you can learn that way. So in that 4 years, what could you do? Could you work at a full-time job, you know, obviously making like 30K a year or something like that? That's something that could obviously happen. Why it's a con is that basically if you go to college and you come out after 4 years, you might have a degree, but at that point, you might not have any experience. Now, me personally, if I were to look at someone's resume, another trainer's, I will notice that differential between experience and school. Obviously, a degree is a pretty big deal, but obviously no experience, that's something else too. Because for me, I'm like contemplating, what can I help them develop in? What is the one thing that I can obviously give them? School, obviously they can learn, we can read, we can go over continuing education, that kind of stuff over time. Or is the experience something? Do I want them to have that experience of how to actually conduct a motivational consultation? Do I want them to know how to do assessments? Do I want them to know how to actually interact with people, how to catalog everything? Because you have to run as an independent business first before you are part of the entire ecosystem of the gym you work with. So basically every trainer I have, I make sure they know how to run their own personal training business efficiently as a subcategory of our entire facility. So those are the main cons. We're looking at talking about money, and we're talking about the lack of experience because you spent 4 years getting a degree versus actually doing something in the field. So obviously a perfect situation, a scenario, which will wipe away all those pros and cons, is if you go to school and you end debt-free and you are working in a facility, a gym, because I know there are people who are trainers at the rec center at the school that I went to, and basically they were just doing it very, very part-time as they were going to school. So if you're able to do that and end debt-free, then I say full send, because you're gonna get a lot out of college and it's gonna be worthwhile. So for the most part, that's a perfect situation, but this is not a perfect world. All right, so in conclusion, so obviously, technically you don't need to go to college, but there are those pros that you should think about as far as obviously the credentials. If you're trying to get a higher credential or kind of like distinguish yourself in the field, that credibility does make a difference. Now, I'm not saying that's like a end all be all thing, but it does matter. Obviously, if you need someone to teach you this thing, if you're not able to learn that well on your own, then obviously going to college, going to a school and actually learning in a classroom environment, a controlled classroom environment from a professor, yes, you are going to have advanced exercise science, biomechanics, etc. And believe me, that will matter. That will make a huge difference. And probably the bigger difference besides just the credibility is the advanced knowledge you will have. Because you can spend years and years trying to teach yourself, but if you have a solid foundation as far as like how to learn the information, how to go through peer-reviewed articles, how to actually break everything down from a technical and statistical standpoint, then for the most part, it's going to be worthwhile. And then obviously the networking, that's going to be huge. The professors, your classmates, etc. It could actually give you a job as soon as you graduate too. That's possible. And then obviously personal development, because you will grow as a person in college, whether it is in the field or just yourself. And then obviously you have to weigh those cons as far as how much money is it costing, And then obviously you're doing 4 years of committing to this. So what are you doing during those 4 years? How are you going to end those 4 years? That's what you want to think about the most. So again, if you can end debt-free and get some experience while you're going to college, I say full send. It's going to be totally worth it. But again, you don't need to go to college in order to be successful as a trainer. You can obviously learn on your own. You can obviously save that money, and you can obviously get more experience while not going to college. So those are things to think about. And again, I will post a video as far as how much a personal trainer makes, because that will kind of help you make a decision whether it's going to be worth it in the long run to go to college and pay off the debt if you do accrue debt, or if you're not going to make that much money and it's better to save that money. So, but that's for another video. In the meantime, hopefully y'all enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe, let your friends know about me. Until next time.
You can say hello, but I don't need